I also spoke to Brigadier General Amir Avivi, who previously served in the Israeli Defense Forces and founded the Israel Defense and Security Forum. I began by asking him what has changed for Israel to get the deal through now.
Basically, Hamas rejected all the way the deal. It never got to the point where it had to go to the Israeli cabinet because Hamas was rejecting it. I think that the big change is mainly two things. One, Israel, one in Lebanon. Lebanon stopped helping Hamas. Syria fell. Iran is weak. Hamas is isolated. And President Trump, the moment President Trump was elected and said that if they don't release the hostages, there will be hell, they assessed the situation and understood that if they don't sign a deal now, they will be in a much worse position afterwards, and they decided that they'll sign it now.
Of course, Hamas and the Palestinians would say that they've already experienced hell in the last 15 months. Don't you think that that hell that Mr. Trump was talking about was also meant for Mr. Netanyahu?
No, I don't think so, because Israel agreed basically to a deal already in May. I think the message was to Qatar, to Egypt, to Hamas. And I think that after we release the first 33 hostages, then we'll see the real deal. Here, we have to put a completely different pressure on Hamas to release the remaining hostages. This will require very strong military pressure and also a completely different approach, talking about the humanitarian aid and how to disconnect Hamas from the society. Hamas is controlling the aid. It's bringing 15, 16-year-old children to fight.
So if that's the case, where do you see the future then of relations between Israel and the Gaza Strip? Because if Hamas is still in control, as you say, if they're beefing up, despite the fact that they've had so many losses in the last 15 months, then what's the future going to look like?
The day after in Gaza, it's only the day after Hamas. So it's either Hamas gives up and leaves the Gaza Strip, and then Israel will start building new local leadership or working with the local leadership of the Palestinians in the different cities, or we'll have to fight and use every tool we have to bring down Hamas. There is no scenario where this war ends and Hamas is in power.
So where do you draw the dividing line? How do you measure that? Because there's always going to be, hundreds, if not thousands, of Hamas sympathizers or supporters, especially after what everyone's been through in the Gaza Strip. Will you use that as an excuse to just carry on with this war till the end of time?
And the core issue is education. If there won't be a process of de-radicalization of the society, then unfortunately this will never end. This is like a swamp creating endless amount of mosquitoes. By dealing with the mosquitoes, we need to deal with the swamp. We need to dry it.
And do you think that helping to de-radicalize Palestinians in Gaza might involve not bombing them, or maybe showing a kinder side, a kinder face of Israel to the people of Gaza?
I think that the understanding needs to be that what we're experiencing and the fight, this existential fight we are having, is no different from what Britain experienced with the Nazis. At the end of the day, you need to win the war decisively to do a process of de-radicalization, just as Britain and the US did in Germany and in Japan after World War II. It's no different.
Right, but after World War II, there was no collective punishment of the German people. There was denazification, and then we had the Marshall Plan, which built up the German economy, and indeed the same happened in Japan, and established democratic institutions. But so there was a switch from aggression to help, to a benign face almost immediately.
Yeah, we see it exactly the same. But remember that to do the Marshall Plan, the US and Britain and the allies controlled Germany for a few years. You can't just win against Hamas, get out and expect something to happen.
And finally, I mean, at the end of World War II and at the end of that phase of reconstruction, there was a stable, sovereign, independent West Germany that emerged. Are you going to say now that there should be an independent, sovereign Palestinian state that comes out of all this a few years after the war's over?
I think that definitely the vast majority of Israelis and also politicians, they want self-governance for the Palestinians. So I think that Israel, in order to be safe, would agree to some kind of status, but to a state that is not armed. We cannot have a meter from.
But it's not really a proper state, is it? If it doesn't have its own army, if it's not in control of its own borders, if that's left to Israel, it's not like Germany after World War II, is it? It's going to be something completely different.
No, it has to be adjusted to the reality of the Middle East.
But that's not attractive to the Palestinian people, ever. You're not holding out much of a prospect of dignity and self-determination to them, if that's the plan.
I don't think that what will bring them dignity is being weaponized. I think that what will bring them dignity is jobs, it's economy, it's prosperity. And this is something that definitely Israel can really help them achieve.
Amir Avivi, thank you very much.
You're welcome.